Please, Daddy.
I told you, when I'm finished, you can have what's left.
There won't be any left. There's never any left.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel and thank you for clicking on the video. Today is a beautiful Christmas morning, Christmas day, afternoon, whenever you might be watching. And I wish you a happy holidays wherever you may be. Today in this video though, we're going to be talking about Grendel. And Grendel, in the latest update, the old piece, is outstanding. They released some absolutely amazing arcanes and new synergies to help create this fat man even fatter. So we're going to be talking about two arcanes, specifically Persistence and Bulwark. As you'll notice, Grendel actually has one of the lowest shield counts in the entire game. It's practically 0, but Persistence actually makes it 0 in exchange for lower damage taken. It's another form of DR. So when we take damage, it is much less and capped at 700 damage as long as you're over the threshold of armor. And we'll go more into the arcane here, but as you can see with Grendel, it's amazing. Now, a lot of these enemies, right, they're going to be stunned by your companion and things like that, but the enemies that have the chance to shoot you or do more damage, they can't burn you down as much anymore, okay? The other benefit too, right, Grendel has one of the best, if not the best, subsumes in the entire game, that being Nourish. And so when you run an arcane like this, where you have no form of survivability outside of, shield regen, how do you combat, the amount of damage you're taking if you're not using, certain mods and things like that? Well, with Grendel, you have his one, which, as you can see, we also got the big 500% increase to Bulwark, because with Gourmand Augment, you'll see as long as I have 5 enemies in my belly, I've got over 2,000 armor. So we're hitting that 500% cap without even trying. And as I was stating earlier with Nourish, you can't die. You just keep healing. It doesn't matter. You can spam it. It doesn't matter at all. Now, of course, Grendel is going to be the only person who can take advantage of the healing when they have Nourish, right? Because when you subsume Nourish, you lose that health gain aspect. It's the diminished subsume default. So obviously Nourish is going to only really benefit Grendel here in this case for that specific niche. But as you can see, right, these enemies, man, they just can't do nothing. And if I get too low, okay, I'm full again. Who cares? I've got 500 damage. Blow this guy's face off. Blow this guy's face off. And we're increasing the damage of all weapons, all sources by 500%. 12 million. Nope, no big deal. We do that every day. We do those on Mondays. So obviously, right, the build's going to be very strong, and 99.9% of, aspects of Warframe. Grendel has always been incredibly powerful, incredibly tanky, but this kind of just checks all the boxes for me in terms of survivability, tankiness, and a full synergy with kit, weapons, arcanes, abilities, companions, everything. It checks all the boxes for me. And I think Grendel, as well as a few other frames, I'm sure you've heard or seen videos like for Inaros and Nidus, and, expertise for Hildren and things like that, right? There are just so many wonderful arcanes that dropped. And I kind of want to cover them, in these sort of brief style videos here, in the next couple days or weeks and whatnot. Because to be honest, right, the last few updates just haven't really spoken to me in terms of build crafting. I didn't find the augments that were released last that exciting. The arcanes that came out weren't that exciting. But this update brought so much build variety, and that is why I play Warframe, is for the build variety and the options to, change the way you play because of what DE adds or what DE changes to make better or for worse, right? All of those things make the game much more interesting for me. So why don't we take a look at the build and go from there? So like I mentioned before, with Arcane Persistence at rank 5, it does remove all your shields. Now, if I remove this arcane real quick, you'll see that Grendel only has 95 shields. If you don't increase it for any other reason or lower it, the base is 95. You're basically removing nothing. So there's really no problem in removing it for a frame like Grendel, especially since he has built-in health regen, built-in survivability. This arcane, I think, in my opinion, was really actually just kind of made for him with that low amount of shields. Like, who else would really benefit from it other than Inaros or Nidus, who actually have no shields? So, right, obviously they're the 3 key takeaway winners, but with Grendel, you take away 95, and now you're limiting your damage even more. With Gormon, like I mentioned too, every enemy gives you 150 armor, so it consumes just a little bit of health on cast, but again, survivability is no problem. So when you have all those enemies in your belly, right, we're already capped with persistence with just the base armor, right? But the increased armor from Gormon actually benefits Bulwark, so we'll talk about that in a second here. And with Bulwark, the great thing about that arcane is you can put it on any primary weapon. You can literally run whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And you get free 500% increase to damage. So again, we'll talk about that in a second. So with Grendel's high survivability, high tankiness, now you're adding, you know, almost 3,200 armor on top of the fact that arcane persistence reduces your damage threshold with the DR. So you've got that tankiness, you got the fact that Nourish causes enemies to stagger as well as heal you and increase your damage. I did take off his 3. It is so completely optional. I think his 3 is really fun to use. However, because we're also using the Gastro augment, I can't ignore the Bane style damage increase that Roar gives to Gastro and the Toxin. And when we're dealing toxin damage with this ability, it procs gas, as well as with Prime Continuity, the Toxin will also cause corrosive. Now, Grendel already strips armor, but it is a status type that will, you know, cause you to do increased damage with weapon mods and things like that. So if you don't have this arcane, don't fret, right? Grendel already strips armor. It's just an increase to your damage because now they have the corrosive stack on them. So with Roar, right, we subsume off the 3 and we put Roar there. And so we have a full complete kit for Grendel. We've got tons of armor, tons of survivability, tons of viral damage, increased damage, Roar with increased damage. You've got 2 of the best subsumes technically in the game on one single frame. You give everyone viral, you give everybody Bane style damage increase, and then you're just wiping the floor with enemies and stripping their armor and dealing gas damage and just melting them. So if you're wondering where's all the strength coming from, it is actually Bellicose. So if you remove Bellicose, it is going to remove this 72% strength here. So it is actually counting the arcane in the stat total, which is, I think, a really nice change. It kind of helps people math it out for them so they don't have to think about it. So Bellicose is great because obviously he's got enough health to, you know, give himself the benefit of Bellicose. And it's a lot easier to get that than having to fight your way to get Molt-Augmented nowadays. And most frames are pretty tanky, so not that Molt-Augmented is bad. Obviously, you could still use it, but for a frame like Grendel, it's just better to use this. Now, you don't have to use Bellicose if you want to increase his strength with shards or just leave it at 232 or change the build however you want. I just think you should definitely run Gormon and Gastro if you plan on running Grendel, because these 2 augments are just so fantastic for his playstyle. I can't really see you running anything else. But obviously we have so many options nowadays, you could really use anything. But this is the build that I chose. I also do have a couple Archon shards here. He doesn't have a huge energy pool, and he doesn't exactly spam his abilities either, but you know, you will be casting his 1 a lot. You will be casting his 2 a lot, you know, thanks to there being no shields anymore. Roar, you know, you just cast that every minute or so, and then Regurgitate is as much as you want, right? So we've got 2 energy shards, I believe, or no, we just have 1 here, and then the other 2 are just for health, which is optional, right? You could put whatever you want there, and then the last 2 is duration, just to kind of round about and give everything a nice duration. So that is the build for Grendel. Now, as I mentioned before, the weapon of choice is completely optional. You don't have to run the Bass Assist. You can run literally whatever you want. I like the Bass Assist just because it already has so many status types. I'm also adding Toxin and Gas to the enemies as well when I shoot them, which does make Savvy just do tons and tons of damage. I have a when I was doing some testing, the highest number I saw with this weapon with full Bulwark was about 45 million to the head. So it does pretty good. Also, right, the unique trait for Mercy Kill, it will drop energy orbs, which is, I guess, a pseudo form of survivability, and it gives you some extra damage in multi-shot. So again, it's just, you're just all in on the damage, all in on the survivability. Like I said, it's a full kit. It's great. And then, of course, with Bulwark, right, anything past 1,000 armor is going to give you extra damage. So Grendel's base armor that I have with the build was 1120. So that means with just Bulwark at its core and no extra buffs, I was sitting at 120% increase. Now that's going to be obviously lower than Primary Merciless or Deadhead or something like that. But as soon as I eat those enemies with Gourmand, I immediately shoot to 500%, not even trying. You won't even notice. You're just always going to have 500% increase in damage. And yes, same thing here. If you take it off, it will show just like the base amount. Now, obviously, as I'm in the arsenal, it's not going to show the full 500% damage total because, again, with Grendel, like I said, I have 1120. So that's the increase you're kind of seeing reflective here. But at 500%, you know, it's going to be a much bigger number. Now, if you do decide to run the Basilisk, this is what I am running. And then for the Riven, again, it's optional, right? Status chance, crit damage, multi-shot. Pretty standard stuff for a shotgun. Nothing super crazy, but these are the mods that I'm running. And of course, like I said, you can run whatever primary weapon you want to use because, again, it doesn't matter. Bulwark slots on any primary weapon. You can use your favorite. You could use the Tord. You could use whatever. Doesn't matter. And that's going to do it for the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Trying to do these videos somewhat quick. I really waited too long to really cover these, but again, I like to take my time with these updates nowadays and just kind of test things out and trial things with frames that I really like and do some research online too about what other people are running or what they're using or what their thoughts are, and then I can make a more educated assumption or do additional testing based off things that they may have discovered. So with that brings us to the end of the video. Be on the lookout for a couple other ones. I do want to kind of cover Hildren. I want to talk about Nidus and probably Anaros in the same video because they're pretty similar with the way they kind of behave with their health tanking. So that would be kind of a fun video, but get yourself back into Grendel gameplay. Again, you know, he's Mr. Roly-Poly Fat Man. He's always been fun to play. Even before his rework, I thought he wasn't terrible, but when he got the rework, he just soared. I mean, I think he is like top 5 frame in the game, just a personal opinion. So yeah, get yourself Grendel, get yourself a Fat Man, you know, be yourself in the game. And take care and have a great new year, guys. Take care.